Hello, welcome back to Bison Overtime. I'm Malik Mitchell.
And I'm Mentzel.
We apologize for our 3-week hiatus. Stuff comes up, we didn't have school and life happens. But,
It's Fargo winners for you. Unpredictable.
Yep. But let's dive into this. Over our break, NDSU goes viral on ESPN men's basketball. We get a big win against Oral Roberts. Hey, it's been crazy over these past 3 weeks.
Yeah, there's been a lot going on. After that, the Oral Roberts game with the big fight, and then afterwards the senior night against Kansas City, NDSU ends up losing that one to Kansas City, and that kind of throws the whole seeding situation into whack because NDSU doesn't know where they're going to line up. They could be the second seed, they could be the fourth seed heading into the last game, so they didn't know what to expect heading against North Dakota.
Yeah, but let's start off with last Saturday. They played UND and won 79-53. It's always nice to beat UND. I always forget the Sioux. But anyways, in the first half, the Bison went on a 12-point run in 4 minutes in, so that was pretty good. They set the tone pretty early, shooting 48% from field. So the Bison were looking good.
Yeah, and they needed that coming off of that Kansas City game. There was definitely some nervousness about how this team was going to look heading into March, and there were some worries about how that game against Kansas City, if it was going to affect them or not, if maybe that ending against Oral Roberts may have gotten into their heads too much, but it seemed like this game was a good system reset for the team.
Yep, and even though UND is at the bottom of the conference, it doesn't take away from our performance. The Bison were up by 9 going into the half, and then coming out of that, they continue where they left off. They emphasized the 3 in the second half, shooting 53% from the 3. The Bison were up 17 in just the second half.
Yeah, and this is one of their better three-point shooting games throughout the season. That's been a major issue for them throughout the season, three-point shooting. It's been a huge struggle for them, and going into March, it's something that you're going to need against the Oral Roberts and the South Dakota States of the tournament. So you're going to need to be able to shoot from 3, and thankfully NDSU was able to do that against UND.
Yep, Grant Nelson ended up with 17 points, going 4 for 5 from the 3 with 7 rebounds and 2 blocks, and Tyree Edey had 10 points with 2 assists.
Rocky Cruiser had 10 points with 7 rebounds and 4 assists. Jarius Cook had 10 points with 3 rebounds and 2 assists.
Okay, the Bison in their regular season, 21-9 overall and 13-5 in the conference. Now the Summer League tournament is finally here. Now, the Bison clinched the second seed, and we'll be facing Denver tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. It didn't look like they were going to clinch to get that second seed. A lot of speculation if they're going to get the third because losing to Kansas City.
Yeah, and it was definitely a wild ending to the season for a lot of teams too. Oral Roberts, they had the path to the second seed right in front of them, but a loss to South Dakota State and a very crushing loss in overtime as well, put an end to that. And then Kansas City, they tried their might to get to that second seed, but NDSU was able to get the job done against UND, and that locked up the second seed for them.
Yep, so like I said, they'll be facing Denver tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. in Sioux Falls, and we will also be there, so it's good. We'll give you guys some good content in Sioux Falls. But let's take a look at the rest of the bracket. You got Oral Roberts taking on Western Illinois. They have a 1-1 record between them this season.
Yeah, and this is definitely going to be probably the most exciting game of the first round of this playoffs. And Oral Roberts will always be a challenge for that Max A. Smith, and it's a very hard team to beat. They're the defending champions of the conference, and who's to say that they can't do it again? And Western Illinois, it's just been an interesting year for them, a team that nobody really expected to be competitive this year. They've had some very good games this year. They've beaten Oral Roberts once, they beat NDSU once, so they can match up with the best teams in this conference. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens in this game.
Yep, and then the other side of the bracket, you got SDSU versus Omaha. SDSU's been dominating the whole season. Omaha, I think, is just going to be a blowout.
Now, yes, and on paper it should be a blowout, but the thing is, ever since SDSU won the Summer League tournament back in 2019, it's been 3 straight years of 1 or 2 seeds, and they haven't even been able to get past the second round. 2020, they lost as the 2020 they lost as the first seed against Western Illinois. Then the next year they lose to Purdue-Fort Wayne, who's not even in the conference anymore,
Yep.
And Purdue-Fort Wayne was the 7th seed, and then they lost to Oral Roberts last year. So, it's very interesting. They've been so good these last few years, but can they actually get it done this year? This is probably the best team that they've had in these last 5 years, so it's going to be very interesting to see if they can finally break the curse.
Yeah, hopefully they can break that curse. And then you got Kansas City versus the University of South Dakota. USD lost to Kansas City twice this season already.
Kansas City has had a very strange year. At the beginning of the year, they'd almost left the conference at the beginning of the season, but then they were forced to stay by the Summit League. And then all of a sudden they were in an unexpected dogfight for the second seed in the conference at the end of the year. Nobody expected them to be up there, and they have had a very consistent season all year. And then as for South Dakota, one of the teams that looked very good heading out of last season, but they had a lot of transfers this year. Dropped all the way down to the 5th seed. Just not a very good year for them this year.
Yeah, but let's take a look at our squad going into the the Summer League tournament. We got Bowden Scumberg. To me, he doesn't get enough credit for his defense. He's willing to guard the best guy, and they put him on the best guy. Like ORU's Max A. Smith, Trenton Massener from Western Illinois. I think he's a good shooter, and it seems like each week he's taking on a bigger role. And then you got Sam Griesel, who's been playing like a madman these past couple of weeks. Grant Nelson, as I like to call him, Slendy God. He's a 6'11" forward and plays like a guard. He's been crucial on this team.
Yeah, and let's also forget about guys like Jarius Cook, Tyree Eady, and Malik Harden-Hayes, who have all had critical time on the field this year as well.
Yeah, I think NDSU is going to meet SDSU in the big dance.
Yeah, and there's a good chance in the conference championship game. I think it could be them again. The only SDSU side looks pretty easy for them to get there. NDSU's got a little tougher competition with Oral Roberts and Western Illinois, but I agree with you, that will be the conference championship.
Yep, and aside from our team just being talented, I think we also have experience. We got Rocky Cruiser, Tyree Eady, and Sam, who's already been there and, leading our guys. So I think we have a good chance in this tournament.
Yep, and it'll be very interesting to see how that veteranocity can help this team. And, but this is a clean slate now. This is a new animal. Any team can come and perform in March, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens.
Do you think there's going to be any upsets? I know you mentioned SDSU, but do you think there's any other ones?
Possibly the biggest one, I think, in the first round that I see right off the bat, possibly Western Illinois over Oral Roberts. There's a very good chance that, Western Illinois, they already beat them once this year, and there's a very good chance that Western Illinois, behind Trenton, they can get this done, and they can upset the defending champs.
Yep, I can't wait for us to watch that game in Sioux Falls live. It'll be crazy. But switching to women's basketball, they also beat UND last Saturday at the Shield Center. They won 81-64. It wasn't easy in the beginning for the Bison. UND was up by 2 in the half, so it was a pretty close game.
It was definitely very shaky up until the fourth quarter. It was a back-and-forth game, but then NDSU just dominated in the fourth quarter, outscoring, doubling the scoring of UND.
Yep. And, in the fourth quarter, they're scoring 24 points and holding UND to just 12 points in the fourth quarter. They did a good job. Hebe Helmling had 21 points with 10 rebounds and 2 assists, and Renea Hopkins had 20 points with 7 rebounds and 3 assists.
Abby Schulte had 18 points and 7 rebounds. Emily Dietz had 11 points with 7 rebounds, and Ryan Cobbins had 11 points and 3 rebounds.
Yep, so the girls finished their season, their regular season, 11-17 overall and 7-11 in the conference. Now, they made it to the tournament. They're the 6th seed, so they'll be facing Kansas City on Sunday at 3 p.m., also in Sioux Falls. How do you think they're going to perform in the tournament?
It's definitely going to be very interesting. And, a stat from this last game, they scored 81 points against UND, yes, but all 81 of those points came from the 5 starters. No points off the bench. That can be a little worrisome where in March you need depth to win those games. Now, it's not like the women's team hasn't been here before. Just 2 years ago, they were the 6th seed up against Denver as the 3 seed, and they pulled off the upset. They beat Denver in the first round. So I don't see any reason why they can't do that again this year. But, just like I mentioned, how the fact they didn't get any points off their bench in this most recent game, definitely a little worrisome, if you ask me.
Especially when you're in a Summer League tournament and that big of a stage, your starters are going to get tired and you're going to need people to depend on and your backups. But I think, it's just going to be tough for us because we'd have ups and downs. Even though we play hard, I heard Coach Jury said that those girls never stop playing. But like you said, we're going to need more backup to perform well in this tournament.
Yeah, and NDSU has been doing a good job of staying in a lot of these games, even against the best teams. But if you're going to be anywhere near South Dakota or South Dakota State, the 2 teams that always are in the conference championship in this tournament, you're going to have to be better than what you were in the regular season. You're going to have everybody bring their A game. A lot of players are going to have to score points. You can't just rely on your 5 starters.
How far do you think the Bison are going to go? They're going to get to the quarterfinals or semis? Or
there could definitely be a good chance they can get past Kansas City. I believe they can give them a good game, and if they play their cards right, they can win that game. It's going to be a little tougher after that because their next game would most likely be against South Dakota State, so it'll be interesting to see how far they can make it.
Yep. Hopefully, Heaven Hamley has to have a good game, and Ryan Cobbins definitely has to have a good game to have a chance in this tournament.
Yeah, indeed.
Yep. But we will be there, so make sure you keep looking at our channel. We'll keep you updated with some highlights and everything. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get into softball and baseball.
No kid deserves to go hungry, but try as they might, not every family can afford to put food on the table every day. That's why the Great Plains Food Bank and their partner agencies work every day to bring food to our hungry neighbors. Every dollar donated can provide 4 meals for those in need. Go to greatplainsfoodbank.org and donate today, so no kid in North Dakota ever has to go hungry.
My name is Becky Parker, and I'm a news anchor at WDAY-TV. I graduated from NDSU in 2010 with a degree in journalism, broadcasting, and mass communication technologies, and then I had an emphasis on broadcasting. Principles of broadcast production and advanced broadcast production. Those were favorites because they were the most relevant for career experience. You're calling people for interviews, you're writing an article. It doesn't just feel like an assignment, it's like actually doing it. I was the news director for the first full semester of the Bison Information Network. The BIN advisor here was very much invested in me to actually have a career in broadcasting. He helped me get my internship and my first job. The people in NDSU's Department of Communication are really interested and helpful in getting students the connections that they need in order to get a job beyond school.
The NDSU Bookstore, where every true fan and alum goes to get their pride on. Gear up with a variety of high-quality t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, and more. Made by top-of-the-line brands like Under Armour, Nike, and CI Sport to help you show off your Bison pride. The NDSU Bookstore has everything you need in your 2 favorite colors, green and gold.
And we're back. We're going to dive into NDSU baseball. So the baseball team started their season off 2 weekends ago in Abilene, Texas, and for a non-conference matchup, winning 3 out of the 4-game series. And then last weekend, they traveled to St. George, Utah, and played a 4-game series against Dixie State. So on Friday, they lost 1-4. Catcher Will Bush had the only run. And then on Saturday, they played 2 games. The first game, they lost 2-6. Outfielder Callan Schwabe had 1 hit and 1 run. And infielder Drew Sackett snuck in 1 run. And then the Bison won the second game, winning 6-2. Infielder Peter Brookshaw had 2 hits and 2 runs, and pitcher Brock Anderson had 1 hit and 1 run.
Third baseman Charlie Hesse also had 2 hits and an RBI.
Yep, and then they came back on Sunday and unfortunately lost 4-6. Catcher Logan Williams had 2 hits and 2 runs, and outfielder Terrell Huggins had 1 hit and 1 run.
Yeah, so an up-and-down start to the year so far, and it's kind of like with any other sport. When you're in non-conference play, very unpredictable. You don't know what you're going to expect, and so far it's been a mixture of good and bad games so far, but it's very early in the season. There's a lot to go over, and I think you mentioned earlier they are ranked number 1 in the preseason coaches polls.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and with the ORU number 2, so, and that's who we beat last season in the championship.
Yeah, so it'll be very interesting to see where this team can pick up off of from last year. And, you know, there's still a lot of time to figure out what to expect from this team. It'll be very exciting to watch them the entire year.
Yep, NDSU is now 4-4 overall. Their next game is today at 8 p.m. in Long Beach, California. They have a 3-game series against Long Beach State, so hopefully they can rally back for this tournament.
I would think that they'd be able to, and this will be another good test for them. 3 games against the same team to be able to see how they can do in a series will be very interesting. And I think they'll be able to at least win 2 of the 3 games, if not all 3 for this series.
Yep, and then moving on to softball, this previous weekend they traveled to their 3rd tournament this season in Albuquerque, New Mexico, for the Lobo Classic. They 2 games on Friday. They won the first one against Buffalo 6-3, and then lost the second one against New Mexico 6-4. And then on Sunday they played the University of Texas El Paso and lost 9-8. Later that day they played Tarleton and won 8-4. And then on Sunday they played Tarleton again and won again 9-1.
Yeah, in the first game, Molly Gates had a hit which led to an RBI. Des Cardenas had 3 hits with an RBI. Cameron Maycutt had a hit which led to 2 RBIs. And Renea Rudd shining that day with 2 home runs.
Yep.
And then later in the last game of the entire weekend, Des Cardenas also had a home run. So the team is currently 10-4 right now after that start. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what this team can do after last spring, which was a very, very down year for the softball team. And normally this is a softball team that's up near the top in the conference, and it's always been very successful. The softball program has. And last year was just unexpectedly kind of down. It wasn't like they were the worst team in the conference, but they were nowhere near what anyone expected them to be. And they're definitely off to a hot start this year, especially with the bats. The bats seem alive, and it seems like it's going to be a very good season for the team this year.
Yep, their next game is today against Cal State Northridge in Riverside, California at 3 p.m. Hopefully they can continue what they're doing.
Yeah, they have a lot of games coming up here. They have 5 games against 4 different teams, especially that one against Oregon State. That one's going to be very interesting. It'll be the last game of the weekend. And, you know, with the way the team has played so far this year, they haven't really struggled in an entire series. Of course, they've had a loss here and there, but they've pretty much controlled all the series that they played in so far, and I don't see how this one can be any different. I predict probably at least 3 of the 5 games they could win for this one.
Yep, hopefully they do good in this tournament. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into men's and women's track and field and men's and women's golf and a preview of, alumni for NDSU football. Stay tuned.
There are so many great things to experience at NDSU. It's hard to pick one, but my favorite is
the people. They make it such a warm place. The Bison aren't just across the country, they're across the globe.
It's the perfect distance from home. The faculty are our biggest cheerleaders. Hands-on research experience. The affordable tuition.
All the opportunities to stay active on campus.
Real-world learning experiences.
Once I got on campus, it felt like home.
My name is Addie Stewart, and I graduated from NDSU in the Department of Communication in 2018. My degree was in strategic communication, and I'm the communications specialist for the city of West Fargo. That includes social media, press releases, breaking news, interviews, media relations, and more. I went into communication because I wanted to do something I was passionate about. There were so many opportunities. I knew I could work for nonprofits, government, small business, agency work. Professors in the department definitely impacted me a lot in my life, making sure that once I graduated college, I knew I could get a job here just because of the connections in the department and the great morale that was in Fargo. Future students should definitely come to NDSU because it's a degree like no other here.
The NDSU bookstore has everything you need to show off your Bison pride. The bookstore can have you sporting green and gold wherever you go. It offers many different brands, sizes, styles, and selection so that you find exactly what you're looking for. Shop the NDSU bookstore and show your spirit today.
And welcome back. We're going to start with men's track and field. So both teams competed in Grand Forks for the Summit League Indoor Championships. For the men's, Brandon Lewis defended his Summit League long jump title, winning 7.37 meters. And then Frazier, Freetley, Trent Davis, Jackson Tracy, Josh Simmons claimed runner-up honors for distance medley relay for NDSU. And then Trevor Otterdahl launched a new career best, throwing 22.69 meters in the weight throw. He got his first individual conference championship in his career, so that's good. And then Jacob Roden took his runner-up honors in 800 meter, finishing with 1 minute 49 seconds. They're looking good.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something good, especially with the Otterdales. They're always going to be getting golds wherever they do.
Yep.
Now for the women's. Kelby Anderson ran away with the 3,000 meter title in 9 minutes and 29 seconds for the second fastest time of her career. Amy Phillips defended her Summit League crown in the weight throw. She posted a mark of 19.86 meters for that win. Amanda Anderson won the shot put with a throw of 15.57 meters. And a very interesting stat for the women's team. For the first time since joining the Summit League in 2008, the NDSU women's track and field team did not win the league's indoors team championship on Saturday. South Dakota's women took the title with 200.5 points, while NDSU came second place with 152. So it's just, that's strange. And I mean, I don't know if it's as much on NDSU's team or more South Dakota's, because NDSU is still second with 152 points, but boy, South Dakota just seemed to run away with that with 200.5 points.
Yeah.
But still a very good season for the women's track and field team.
Yep, so their next meet, both teams' next meet is next Friday for the NCAA Indoor Championships in Birmingham, Alabama. Hopefully they pick up where they left off the Summer League tournament.
Yep, and I mean, they always should. We always get winners every single week for the men and the women in individuals, so we'll definitely expect more of that in Birmingham.
Yep, and then moving on to golf. So we'll kick it off with men's golf. On Monday and Tuesday, the Bison competed at the Dove Mountain Intercollegiate in Arizona. The men's finished first out of 5 teams. Nate Diesel finished 6th overall with 68 points, and Jack Johnson climbed 3 spots in the final round to finish 7th overall, scoring 75 points for the Bison. And then Brock Winter finished 10th overall, and Ian Simonich finished 14th overall.
Meanwhile, the North Dakota State women's golf team finished tied for 10th place at the Grand Canyon Invitational at the GCU Golf Course. The Bison assembled rounds of 303, 297, and 302 for a 3-round score of 902 points. Grand Canyon won the tournament with a score of 860. Joe Baranchik finished tied for 34th place, registering a career-low 3-round score of 225. Catherine Monty and Lexi GLF finished tied for 46th place, and then Leah Scar finished tied for 68th place.
Yep, the Bison, the men's will return to action on March 14th through the 15th at the GCU Invitational in Phoenix, Arizona.
And then meanwhile, for the women, their next outing will be at the Pizza Hut Lady Thunderbird Invitational at the Sunbrook Golf Course in St. George, Utah on March 10th to the 12th.
Okay, and now switching gears to some football. NDSU alum Christian Watson was at the Combine yesterday, and he had a outstanding 40 time.
Yep, 4.28, which was one of the 8 wide receivers in that combine who were under 4.4 at their 40. So yeah, he was one of those fast receivers, and he looked very good. And also in the catching drills as well, seemed to be very aware of where the ball was going, and he was catching all of them. So he was doing a great job at the combine.
My thing was, why was everybody surprised? He showed his speed every game. Just because he's tall, that's a really athletic guy.
Yeah, I think it's his height and his weight that everybody was so surprised that he was so fast. And it's not like he's a heavy guy at all, but, you know, a taller guy like that usually isn't like a really speedy guy like a Tyreek Hill.
And also scouts are surprised the way he can move at his, like you said, at his size. He's very lateral. He can get the ball in different ways that a tall guy shouldn't move like that.
And also, you know, more often than not, people are not going to look at FCS players the same way that they're going to look at FBS players. No. And especially at the wide receiver position, there hasn't really been an FCS wide receiver who has done that well at the NFL level until just this year with Cooper Kupp, who's out of Eastern Washington. He just won the Super Bowl MVP and the Triple Crown. Yep. So it might open some people's eyes for FCS wide receivers, and Christian might be one of them.
Yep, and I hate the narrative that, like, you're underrated until, you know, the combine and stuff like that. Because I feel like Christian Watson was underrated when he was in college. He wasn't as known as he's known now, you know, all the national news. But when he was in college, he was doing well, and he wasn't getting as much national news as FBS. Obviously, because FBS gets more attention and whatnot, but I just feel like he earned that.
And a lot of people think of players like that, especially when you have a great player like his sophomore year when he first had the real playing time. Mm-hmm. Trey Lance was his quarterback. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, and there were some people that think that, oh, he's just a product of a really great quarterback. Mm-hmm. And he is, you know, gotten better and better every year. So that's definitely not the case. He definitely is a great player in his own right. So, you know, now that scouts can see it, and it's very interesting because there's already been multiple teams talking about getting scouts looking specifically at him. The Chicago Bears and the San Francisco 49ers have both been teams that have been looking at him. I think the San Francisco 49ers is very interesting because that could get him a good reuniting with Trey Lance.
Trey Lance is also help out Debo on the other side, and I don't want them to go to the Bears. Like, who wants them to go to the Bears?
No, I mean, the Bears wide receivers right now, other than Allen Robinson, and he's been trying to get out of there for a few years, they don't have much going on over there. There's also been rumors of other teams like New England and Green Bay who have also wanted him as well. Now, back over here, meanwhile, for football, we do have kind of some upsetting news about one of our key defensive players. Jasir Cox enters the transfer portal. This is about a week and a half ago already, but still kind of stings to hear this. And he's kind of taking the same route his brother did.
Yep. And Jasir is a really good player, and I think he should find a team that's going to give him more exposure, because I assume that's why he's doing it. Obviously, like his brother, they're trying to get to the league, and these days, I mean, FCS is coming up a little bit, but these days FBS, you have a better shot of going to the league. So hopefully he finds what he's looking for.
Yeah, but it sounds like that's what he wants to do. He wants to go to an FBS college like Jabril did. He went to LSU, and then he ended up getting selected in the 3rd round by your Dallas Cowboys.
Yes, sir.
So, and now you got to look at our defense for next year, and you have to wonder how much of a hit is this going to take? Because he played as kind of like that nickel with a corner mixed with a linebacker. Now, the thing is, we have guys who have also played those positions who played really well. We still have Jaden Price. We still have at the cornerback position, and we also have Cole Wisniewski at the linebacker position. So I think we'll be fine at those positions. I mean, it won't be the same without them there being able to play both, but I think we're still okay at those positions on defense.
Do you think he's going to land a high FBS team or one of those kind of lower caliber teams?
Yeah, I don't know if a Power 5 college is going to pick him up or a non-Power 5 college. It's really hard to tell at this time, you know, and I didn't really know where Jabril was going to go when he announced his transfer either, but he ended up with the defending FBS champions in LSU. So I guess it's whatever team really wants him and whatever team really needs him, I guess that's where he'll go.
No, he is a really good player. I'm a fan of him on the defense, especially on our defense. He's definitely, to me, underrated. He plays fast, he can hit hard, and his size, he doesn't let his size be a crutch. So I really am excited for him, even though it takes a hit on the Bison, but I'm excited for him.
And then one more player that we need to talk about, back to the combine, though, Cordell Volson. He will be going today with the other offensive linemen, and it's kind of funny, you know, in recent years, we've had a lot of offensive linemen who have been going to the NFL. Billy Turner, Zach Johnson, Dylan Redunds, and now Cordell Volson. And it's very interesting with how many of these offensive linemen are going to the NFL, and it's just a product of how good the run game's been in these last few years and how much time quarterbacks have had passing, and it's a testament to these great offensive linemen.
Yeah, and then I also want to switch gears to this topic because it's been, you know, I just hear a lot of people talking about it. So you got JMU moving up now, and then you got Sam Houston moving up, right? And I heard, it's a lot of speculation that NDSU is going to be a joke because we're going to basically be the Alabama of FCS if we don't move up. How do you feel about that?
It's definitely very interesting, and it goes back to the conversation of can teams move up, not just because of their playing abilities. If that were the case, NDSU would have moved up years ago, but it's what the university can do. And, you know, we don't have enough sports yet to move up to the FBS at this moment. They used to have a rule about the size of the stadium as well. We used to not meet that, but they took that away recently. So that wouldn't be a problem, but it's just more of funding and, you know, the university just not having enough money at the moment. And, you know, and I think there's a lot of people who are fine with where we are right now. You know, it would be, this is my personal opinion, I really wouldn't like us moving up to the FBS because it kind of takes away from the fun that the FCS has because we actually have a playoff bracket, not like that FBS 4-team bracket. Don't let them confuse you. That's not a playoffs. But we have the 16 to 2014 bracket, and it's always fun to watch that, and it feels more legitimate, like a more legitimate championship. And I don't know if we'd ever compete in the championship at the FBS level. So personally, I think.
Then you got to build another dynasty, just like we did in FCS. And what if it does become a joke that we just win it every year? Like there's no competition out there. That is going to create a problem. And then it affects recruiting because everybody's going to go to where? NDSU instead of losing to another team. So it's just going to create like a dynasty.
Of course, we have to remember there are other colleges who are kind of on the upswing right now. One who is on the upswing, but currently doesn't eligible for the playoffs, but they could be soon because they might change it. Jackson State with Deion Sanders and his son there. They've been beyond recruiting so many great
landed some 5-stars,
Yep. So there's definitely FCS teams who are on the upswing right now, and you know dynasties don't last forever. We know that. So there's going to be someday where the NDSU dynasty ends and the other teams are going to step up, but for now, yes, in the short window, it doesn't seem like that's coming anytime soon.
Yeah, definitely. Even though some like a good chunk of our defense is leaving, it's still NDSU. That core is still strong.
Yep, and it's always been that next man up. We've had 3 different coaches. We've had how many different quarterbacks? Like 4 now. So yeah, it's definitely not about just a certain amount of players. It's just getting new, fresh talent every year and them being able to play up to the same level that the players before them did.
Yeah, we'll see how that's going to be in a few years. But thank you for tuning in to another episode of Bison Overtime. Sorry we're on a 3-week hiatus, but we're back in action. Catch you next week.